From KUOW in Seattle, welcome to Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman, and welcome to our Seattle mayoral debate for 2025. We have a live studio audience here at KUOW and candidates who are going to talk about the issues. We have two candidates running to lead the city of Seattle. Incumbent Mayor Bruce Harrell was elected to the position in 2021. He served on the city council for 12 years. Mayor Harrell, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Libby. I'm excited.
So his opponent is Katie Wilson. She founded the nonprofit Transit Riders Union and serves as its chair. Katie Wilson, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be here.
And I want to just take a moment to say thank you to our studio audience, especially on a night where the Mariners are in Game 7 of the ALCS. I really appreciate all the time and attention to democracy tonight. Thank you. We're going to have a great debate. So before we get started, just a couple of rules to go over. Each candidate is going to have 90 seconds for a first answer to a new question. For most questions, the other candidate will then have 45 seconds for a response. Some questions will be 90-90. I will note those for you. If during a response you make a specific claim about your opponent, they will have an additional 30 seconds to respond to your response. We're also going to have a lightning round at the end of all this for some fun, brief one-word answers. That's to close us out, followed by closing statements. No opening statements in this debate, but I think you'll find that the first question will give you a chance to introduce yourselves. All right, if we go over time, we have some friends who are going to help us stay on that clock, and you might hear this sound. Or you might hear this sound. Or maybe this. All right, that's our friend the crow, the seagull, and the Washington State Ferry foghorn. They like us to stay on the clock. We're going to get going here with a question first to candidate Katie Wilson. Since a political campaign is kind of like a job interview, let's start with your resume. You have not served in elected office before. Mariners fans who watched playoff baseball games might have seen an attack ad paid for by a group supporting your opponent that alleged that you lack experience. The central theme of the ad is that you haven't managed a large budget or a staff. You've responded to this claim in several other debates by talking about the diverse backgrounds of other mayors, like Charles Royer, who was a news reporter and then a mayor through the 80s. Royer is quoted as saying that his transition to public office included a steep learning curve, especially around hiring people. So my first question to you, Katie Wilson, is what do you think the biggest learning curve for you will be as mayor, and how will you overcome that? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, great question. And, as you might imagine, once we came out of the primary with 51% of the vote, we started taking the transition process very seriously. So since then, I've been working with a really great crew of folks who have deep experience in City Hall, many of whom have worked in City Hall for decades, not current city employees, by the way, but who have helped me to kind of analyze the last 5 or so mayoral administrations and map out what we believe is going to be a really strong structure for the mayor's office, and also kind of mapping out the relationship between the mayor's office and city departments. And it's been really revealing, and also talking with a lot of current and former city employees about some of the dysfunction that is currently going on in City Hall, which, to be clear, a lot of it predates the current administration. So I'm not trying to pin that all on the current mayor, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of really good advice from people with deep city experience, and I'm really excited about assembling a team. And I'm very aware that, I have, 14 years of community organizing, coalition building experience that's meant that I've built a lot of relationships with folks in local government and also outside of local government, in the nonprofit sector, in other sectors that I think will be very valuable when it comes to staffing up my administration. I mean, we're already having conversations with kind of short lists of people for some key positions. And I know that I'm going to have to bring people with me into City Hall who have kinds of experience that I have less of, right? And that includes, deep experience in the executive branch. Okay, I'm out.
So you would say the number one thing for learning curve is executive branch experience, or what? Just
Yeah.
30 seconds,
So I guess I would say that, like, my experience, I've done a ton of work pushing through legislation, have a lot of experience with the council, also experience working with city departments. But yes, absolutely, kind of executive branch experience is something that I realize I'm going to have to surround myself with people who have deep experience there.
Thank you. Mayor Harrell, you are selling your experience as an elected leader to voters in the campaign trail, but that might actually be working against you in this race. More than 50% of voters chose your opponent in the primary election. People appear to want change in this election. So, that can be a problem for an incumbent, of course, if it's a change election. In that spirit, what was your biggest regret of your first almost 4 years in office? And if you are reelected, how will you turn that around if voters give you that other term?
My biggest regret, well, that's a hard question for me because I don't really talk about regrets. I'll respond a little differently. It's a real tough job. That if you look at the last several mayors, and Charlie Royer was always an endorser of mine, and God bless him, his soul. You look at the last few mayors, they were mirrored with scandal. They had a lot of issues. You have a lot of responsibility. And I was given a very tough hand. Not only did we come out of the George Floyd era, we were struggling with COVID. Everyone had masks when I first took office. Worse, I had 320 officers quit. That's 1/5 of our force. 1/5. That's 5 precincts we have. That's like operating a city our size with 4 precincts. Worse, we were in a deficit. Since I've been mayor, we've had $642 million worth of a deficit. Now, my life story is one of overcoming challenge. I don't make mistakes. My mother and father did not raise me. I went to Seattle Public Schools, and I came out being able to make things happen, drive the outcome that we wanted to see. And that's how we were still able, even with a deficit, to invest over $1 billion in affordable housing. Unprecedented. Currently, $350 million in our housing. Unprecedented. Getting 10 applications a day. 4,000 applications a year to rebuild a public safety department, a new care response, an unarmed response to public safety. So what I learned is it's really tough to right the ship. The learning curve is huge. See that timing there? So I just instinctively knew it was going to.
The learning curve is huge, and so is that voice of that crow. Katie Wilson, second question to you. Part of your plan to address homelessness includes housing people in some of the nearly 3,000 vacant affordable housing units in the city. You plan to redirect the housing levy voters approved in 2023 to cover the cost of rent and services. And this would require buy-in from affordable housing developers. You've talked about the ways in which things would have to kind of shift around, potentially like consolidating vacancies, things like that. It would likely require more funding sources to cover the costs as well. Greg Kim at the Seattle Times estimated that could run as high as $165 million annually. Your plan would also mean that those housing levy dollars that voters approved would not be going to building new affordable units. It would be redirected. And this is at a time when private sector construction is at a standstill. This is a big change. Is it all feasible? And does your solution today create a bigger housing shortage problem for tomorrow, potentially? 90 seconds.
Okay, that's a short amount of time. So, first I want to say that one of the big reasons I'm running in this race is because of my deep disappointment with how the current administration has handled the homelessness crisis. We have thousands more people sleeping unsheltered on the street today than we did 4 years ago. Brookings Institute has called Seattle a national outlier in our levels of unsheltered homelessness. So I believe that it is an urgent priority to open new emergency housing and shelter and to get people inside. So when on the campaign trail, I've talked about 4,000 units. The reason I put that number out there is because I believe we need to talk about what we need. And it often feels today as though we've actually given up on meaningfully addressing homelessness. We're moving people around from place to place without meaningful offers of shelter and support. So in terms of how we get there, and I want to emphasize that this is a proposal, and that this will be developed in consultation and partnership with affordable housing providers, with other stakeholders. So I envision about a quarter of these 4,000 units being tiny house villages, micro-modular housing, right? This is a kind of shelter that when you talk to unsheltered homeless folks, they're eager to move into. And we also have these thousands of vacancies in the affordable housing sector. So when I'm talking about getting people into those vacancies, that's housing, right? So that's not emergency housing, that's not shelter, right? That's housing. And we need to make sure that we're pairing people with the kind of services they need to be successful there. So there are a lot of people in our shelter system already who only need light touch case management. They don't have complex needs related to drug use, mental illness. Those people we can move successfully into those units by buying down rents. And then that frees up space in our shelter system for people to move into.
Thank you so much. Mayor Harrell, you have 45 seconds to respond here. This is a new idea from your opponent about moving people into these unused affordable units, especially studios. What do you think of the plan, and would you consider it?
It's a bad idea. And it's a bad idea because if you look at what we've done with shelter, first of all, let's look at the statistics. In 2020, there are 2,078 shelters. Under our administration now, there are 3,075. Homelessness has gone up in the state, in the country. Almost 18% of the people are unhoused in our country. It's gone up in the county, and certainly we have challenging times here, but 70% of the people we are putting in shelter through our funds are not becoming unhoused in Seattle. The challenge we have is we're not getting the regional participation that we need. When I say that 85% of the tiny homes of the entire county are here in Seattle. We don't want to kick teachers out, baristas out, social workers out of the affordable housing. We want to build for them and give homeless people the support services that they need. That is just not good policy, and it's not a best practice.
And we're going to stay on the subject of homelessness. You talked about that 3,000 units number. You had promised to open 2,000 units during your 2021 campaign, Mayor, and that included shelter beds and supportive housing units. Those kind of go together to make up this emergency housing number of 3,000 that you're talking about. Also, the Seattle Times reported that a large chunk of those 3,000 beds were funded before you became mayor. When it comes to specifically the shelter beds, it looks like basically since you took office that you're treading water. As of last week, there were 13 more shelter beds in Seattle than when you took office, according to the Times count. In some cases, the city's homelessness dashboard has claimed, for example, that tiny home villages were relocated, but then became new shelter beds, even though they just moved across the city. They didn't add to the overall shelter capacity, but they were counted in that number. So what, to you, is the biggest obstacle to increasing shelter capacity during your term? And how will you change things if you're reelected? 90 seconds.
Yeah, first of all, we have to reset the facts because there's a misdescription of what occurred. A lot of what occurred during COVID, we had one-time funds, we had ARPA funds, and those were used to get people off the street immediately. Period. Those funds ran out. And so what we had to do is find people new places to live and have a sustainable method by which we can shelter them. You know, the truth of the matter is I've been doing housing policy for over 30 years, even before I was on the city council. And the answer has to be, again, a regional solution. If you look at every single year, we do what the city should do. We've increased funding for the homelessness strategies. And again, in 2023, we had 2,204 people have accepted referrals, and the next year, the same amount. And we have 50% increase of people coming from shelter into permanent supportive housing. That is significantly higher than the nation's average and the county's average. As I said, 70% of the people coming here who we're treating are not coming from the city of Seattle. So the model is broken. We need Tukwila, Renton, Auburn, Kent, all of these other cities, Bellevue, Redmond. We need them to put resources into the regional approach, and they're putting $0 in. The deal that I inherited was that the city puts in $120 million, the county puts in $80 million, and all of the other cities put in $0. We have 39 cities in the county. That is the deal, the interlocal agreement that I inherited. I had to rechange the governance model because when we first started, I was one of 44 people on governing this actual structure. So that's a bad structure to solve homelessness.
We're going to give 45 seconds to Katie Wilson to respond. We're also going to come back to the KCRHA so you can finish your thought there. Mayor Katie Wilson, what is your assessment of the shelter situation in Seattle right now?
Yeah, I think it's very clear that we are not doing all that we can. And, I've been on the debate stage with the mayor a number of times now, and he does a lot of passing the buck. So yes, we want other cities to step up and contribute more. But the mayor's the mayor of Seattle, not the mayor of those other cities. And, we have hundreds of tiny homes, empty tiny homes sitting in storage lots in Interbay and SoDo. We need to find sites for those homes, and we have operators that are ready to operate those tiny house villages. So if I'm elected mayor, I will immediately work with the port, work with the county, work with every city department that has access to public land to identify sites so that we can open those villages and get people inside. And we've seen, I think, not just treading water, but we saw a ProPublica article about how the city paid for hotel shelter beds that stayed empty for almost a year. So there just has not been the focus that we need on opening new emergency housing and shelter.
I'll point out that was a KUOW and ProPublica joint report.
Sorry.
Our reporters will thank me for that. Mayor Harrell, just because I heard a very specific accusation here that you were passing the buck, I want to give you 30 additional seconds before we move on to this question of the KCRHA specifically. Are you passing the buck? 30 seconds.
No, and it's pretty offensive that when I've been working on these issues for 16 years and thousands of people before me and are working with me right now, and my opponent has zero background in doing this work. If you look at what she's done, she's had zero effort in this work. And to think that anyone in the city would not be passionately trying to figure out a best practice to shelter people, it's almost offensive. I look at the people that are sheltered, and I know many of them. I grew up with many of these people. So this is not only a personal passion, but we practice best practices.
Katie, 30 seconds. You have no background in this. That's the allegation from your opponent. 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's false. I've spent 14 years advocating, among other things, for progressive funding for affordable housing, shelter, and homeless services. In 2020, I led in partnership with Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda on designing and passing the Jumpstart payroll expense tax. 62% of that tax, which is now raising almost $400 million a year, was slated to fund affordable housing. It's just simply incorrect to say that I haven't done work on this over the years.
Thank you. Mayor Harrell, staying with homelessness, but now talking about the KCRHA, the great acronym that everybody loves, King County Regional Homelessness Authority. Mayor, you talked about the fact that other cities are not stepping up to fund services and other response to the crisis in our region. During your tenure, the city shrunk the KCRHA's power. It is now just a pass-through organization rather than a policy-generating entity. The city has also taken back some outreach and homelessness prevention contracts from KCRHA to administer on its own. So I just want to get a gut check from you. Does the Regional Homelessness Authority have a future, or is Seattle going to be going it alone?
Well, I'll be direct that I have a motion pending at the KCRHA right now to see if they will truly be regional. And we have to give them every opportunity to succeed. They will, I'm sure, last in some form or not. But let me also say about my neighboring cities, and I never pass the buck. I have not been a successful person in my life by blaming others. I make no excuses, but as an attorney, I do argue with facts. That's not passing the buck. The other cities around, they are doing exactly what they signed up to do. It is not Auburn's fault. It's not Kent's fault. It's not Tukwila fault. They never agreed to put resources in. My argument to them now that I am negotiating with is that if you don't have money, you have land, you have resources other than money. I want them to adopt a tiny home policy because I was one of the champions on what a tiny home should look like: access to services, access to transit, a healthy environments, and a good neighbor agreement such that you become good, productive people in an area. So we modeled that. So the organization could have a very bright future. And that is exactly why I changed the governance structure. There was a continuum of care, there was an implementation board, and a governing committee. Much too clunky to really be nimble to shelter people. This has been tough work, by the way. It's been tough work. And not a day goes by where we're not thinking about how we plan better, how we get better employees to do the job. So, and they've had a lot of growing pains. They've had a lot of growing pains as well. But I continue to believe a regional approach has to be the answer towards solving this issue.
Thank you. I'm going to give 90 seconds as well to you. Katie Wilson, same question. Does the King County Regional Homelessness Authority have a future? Should Seattle be going it alone? 90 seconds.
Yeah, so Seattle absolutely should not be going it alone, right? There's no doubt that the homelessness crisis is a regional crisis, and we need strong partnerships with other governments in our region. If elected mayor, I will be working very closely with the next county executive to chart a course forward, and whether that will involve the King County Regional Homelessness Authority in its current form or not, I think is really a question mark. And there's no doubt that, as the mayor has referred to, I think some of the kind of structure, the way that entity was set up was very much less than ideal and hobbles it as a regional body. One of the promises of that agency was that when the city and county contracts were combined under one roof, that there would be kind of a rationalization and they would be rebid out from this single entity. That hasn't happened, so those contracts are still separate. So we're not really getting much of the benefit of having this single agency. I really think it's a question whether the agency continues in its current form or not. But there's definite costs to starting over. So I think we try to make it work, but then we have to be open to other options moving forward.
Thank you. And you are listening to Soundside on KUOW and the Seattle mayoral debate hosted at the KUOW studios. I'm Libby Dankman. Joining me here are Mayor Bruce Harrell and candidate Katie Wilson. We're going to be right back after a very short break here on KUOW. Okay, it's halftime, everybody. What's the score in the game? 2-1 Mariners? Oh. Okay. Woo! Thank you. Solo home run. Okay. Thank you. What inning?
Top of the fourth.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a question. Were you paying attention to our answers?
Would you be?
Look, they're all here. I feel like
this is
good job, guys.
Extra credit to everybody. Thank you. All right, everybody. Have to get back to the serious business here. 3, 2. I'm going to take a little sip of water. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Seattle mayoral debate hosted at the KUOW studios. Thank you, everybody who came out tonight for our debate, democracy, especially during Game 7 of the Mariners playoff run there in Toronto. Mayor Harrell, the next question will go to you, and it's about growth and where the city goes from here. Urbanist voices were critical of your One Seattle comprehensive plan that's on the verge of passing in the city council. Critics said that it didn't allow for enough housing to meet demand and kept new density focused on certain busy corridors instead of more equitably spread throughout the city. How do you respond to those, again, mostly urbanist voices that we hear talking about your plan that way, and what is your vision for how Seattle will grow over the next decade?
Sure. Well, we stand behind the comprehensive plan, but to make sure that we're listening, we issued a supplemental environmental impact statement, a supplemental report to make sure the conversation is real. We proposed 330,000 units. That's over twice the old plan, which had 160,000 units. There was an option 5 that I'm sure my opponent may say that we needed to go further enough. But we took the leadership to put down the stake and say 330,000 units. And I will guarantee you my opponent will not say what's going far enough, what that means. There's no number, ever. I also want a good quality of life in Seattle. I want open space. I want dog parks. I want a healthy lifestyle for people. So we calibrated where we thought growth should be. You go down Aurora Avenue, for example. We came up with the strategy of having 30 neighborhood centers. We want to make sure that Seattle has a good quality of life, but we want to embrace the growth that we will have in the next 20 years. Cars will be smaller. We're reducing the number of cars in the city, and so it's a very well thought out plan because I want to give people the quality of life that they deserve here.
Thank you. Katie Wilson, on the subject of growth, a few years ago, you jokingly tweeted, quote, "Sometimes I wish Seattle would die just a little bit." That was about an article explaining that Seattle had grown more than any other large city in 2020. You followed up that post by saying, "I know it would be better to just build more housing." The reason I talk about an old tweet, which I think is the highest form of journalism, is that it seems to be sort of this combination that you are holding in your mind here of urbanist progressives and then also a little instinct of old school Mossback, why do we need to keep growing at the expense of everything else? Are you channeling both of those thoughts here? I mean, what is your vision? You also have 90 seconds here. What is your vision for the future of growth in Seattle?
Great question, and I appreciate the digging there. If that's the worst tweet we can find, then maybe I'm doing okay.
Investigative work. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I moved to Seattle back in 2004, over 20 years ago, and it felt like a very different city then. It felt maybe a little more like the Seattle of the 90s than it does today. And it had this kind of, there was this relaxed atmosphere around it where you could, like I did, right, move to Seattle without a job lined up, find a place to rent for $400 a month and just get a job and kind of build your life. And there's such a pressure cooker environment today that if you're not making six figures, makes it so hard to afford to live here. And I think that's what so many of us around the city are experiencing right now. And so that's where I think you're getting the maybe the Mossback part of that, right? Where it's like, why does it have to be this way? But I really do think that it's clear that part of the reason why we're in this housing crisis that we're in now and why we're in this affordability crisis is that we have not grown our housing to match the growing population of the last 20 years. And so as highly paid tech workers have flooded into the region, that has just made rents go up and up and up and home prices go up and up and up. People are going to keep moving here, right? So that's why that was a joke. We know that people are going to keep moving here for all kinds of reasons, whether that's,
5 seconds.
Oh, okay. And so, yes, I do believe that we need to go further in allowing the private market to build housing around Seattle and our great neighborhoods. And I also believe that we need to invest deeply in social housing and publicly funded housing so that we can make sure that everyone has a home here.
It's a social housing fan, the Seagull. Katie Wilson, question next goes to you, and we're moving to the topic of public safety, Seattle Police Department, labor relations, and uniformed police labor relations specifically are a big deal for the mayor's office. Seattle's just coming out of years of significant trouble hiring and retaining officers. And to work effectively, alternatives to police, like the new community assistance response and engagement teams or care teams, they require labor agreements because they replace protected work. Recent reporting by David Croman at the Times has shown how officers' buy-in or obstruction can make or break the care program. You no longer support defunding the police department to up to 50%, as you wrote about in 2020. You told King 5 that you've learned a lot since then. But memories are long, and I'm curious how you were going to approach working with the police department and officers, the SPOG, the union, to maintain SPD staffing progress and to enable the kinds of alternatives that you say that we need. 90 seconds.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I believe that our officers have a really difficult job, right? They're out there every day on the front lines of the homelessness crisis, of the drug crisis, right? Dealing with very challenging situations, dealing often with people who have severe mental illness. So there's no question that they have a hard job, and we need to support them in that job. My team has been having a lot of conversations with officers, with former officers, with other folks in the public safety space. And this is an area where, I realize that I have a lot of learning to do. And so that's why we're having those conversations. I'm really hopeful, right? I think that there's, just to give one example, before 2020, we had, in every precinct, we had a community policing team of 1 sergeant and 4 officers. And as we've been talking to folks, it seems like there's very broad agreement that was actually a really good use of police staffing. And even at our current levels of inadequate staffing, that it would be good to shift back and have that community policing model in every precinct. And I really think there's a lot of openness to figuring out how we can better use the staff that we have as we continue hiring more officers. And I think there's pretty broad support for expanding the care team as well. Now, I do think that there's obviously work to do with the culture in SPD. We're also very behind on our goal of expanding the hiring of women officers. And so, it's not, there's definitely work to do, but I think that there's a lot of room for progress. And, if I'm elected mayor, I'm going to be having a lot more conversations with officers.
Thank you. Mayor Harrell, 45 seconds to you. SPD canceling care dispatches as reported in the Times or closing scenes before they arrive. That's a problem. Obviously, if these alternatives are going to be successful, I know you doubled the number of care personnel in your next budget proposal. What's the solution?
It'll be solved. That we will have a SPOG agreement that allows us to expand the care department, period, full stop. It will be solved in a matter of weeks, maybe even days. Having said that, what sort of scares me about the changing positions of my opponent is that just a couple of years ago, she was quoted as saying, imagine a Seattle without a police department. And my opponent denied saying that until we furnished it in writing. She was also vocal opponent to defund the police department. What I said is communities like mine, Black and brown communities, will suffer the most. We are now getting 5 guns off the street a day. I need to protect everyone. That is our charter responsibility. And just like I said, I guaranteed you on the comp plan, there was not going to be a number when I said 330,000 units. But I'll stop. And those noises are getting a little annoying, by the way.
That's kind of the idea. Sorry, Mayor. 30 seconds to you, because I think I heard the mayor say basically that he's concerned and that you have shifting positions on this. Katie Wilson, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I mean, in 2020, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, we had a very contentious public conversation about what community safety really means and about what the role of policing is in that. And, I think it's important to draw some through lines, right? So one of the piece that I wrote in Crosscut at that time, which was about, what would defunding the police mean? And it was kind of an explainer. And one of the things that I was learning at that time, and I think a lot of people were learning, was that police perform many roles that they're not needed for. And the care team that everyone loves now came out of that conversation. So I just want to point out that, yes, I've learned a lot and my opinions have changed, but it's an evolution. I haven't gone back. We learn things and we are all growing from that experience.
The Crow heard that it was annoying and it's back for more. So we're going to quickly move on, but stay on the topic of public safety here. Mayor Harrell, you signed a new misdemeanor drug law in 2023. You said it was a bold, health-first approach that prioritized treatment. A new report from the King County Public Defender's Office says that of over 200 drug cases brought by the city between October 2023 and July of this year, only 6 resulted in treatment or a court order directing somebody to receive treatment. Now, your office pointed out that this does not count law enforcement assisted diversion or lead clients who are not prosecuted. So the city attorney's office numbers, when they provided this, said that since the law was put into place, about 48% of people completed lead intake rather than be charged with a drug crime. Do you think that the drug possession law is working as intended right now? How can we get more people into treatment instead of jail?
So the drug law, I actually drafted it, and I proposed it, and other cities are looking to us for guidance because it's a best practice law. Because we wanted to make sure that people who are killing themselves first, they get treatment. And you look at the numbers we had to correct, that 75% of the people arrested were diverted to the LEAD program. And my opponent was saying, again, with misinformation, that we had defunded LEAD, when the fact is in 2022, their original investments were $6.6 million, but in 2025, their investments were $14.5 million. We will arrest people who are drug trafficking and doing harm or threatening others, full stop. But we also continue to invest in upstream practices. And Lisa Dugard, the founder of LEAD, who of course endorses my reelection, understands we've been doing this work for about 10 years together. And so we have a good law. This is tough work right now. We have to look at people who are dying on the streets, but I also have to protect the streets. And that's what an executive does. An executive makes tough decisions when to protect streets and when to get people in treatment. And our county has to be a strong partner because they control the health space. That is their space. We pay into a health system. So we're working in collaboration with the county to make sure we're implementing best practices. But I think all of you could see the impacts of fentanyl. It's creating brain damage in these people who are killing themselves.
5 seconds.
And so we have implemented an effective law, and we're implementing best practices in our approach.
Thank you. Katie Wilson, 45 seconds. Is the law working? How can we get more people into treatment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that report is definitely concerning and suggests that the law is not maybe working as intended. I guess what I'll focus on in my short time here is that, strong supporter of lead and diversion programs. And I think what's really important is that as we're looking at expanding those programs, their success hinges upon not just that long-term case management, but in actually having the shelter, the housing with treatment, with wraparound supports that people are going to need to be successful there. And I think what we're often seeing in this moment is that even if you're able to get someone into treatment, there's often nothing at the end of that for them. And so this really goes to taking a holistic look at our whole system and making sure that we have those realistic pathways to permanent housing with support that people really need.
Thank you. We're to our final full question here. We have a lightning round following this. I'll start with you, Katie Wilson. Seattle's facing a projected $140 million budget shortfall next year. The mayor has put forward a balanced 2026 budget plan, partially with revenue from the Jumpstart payroll tax on large businesses. You helped champion that tax. You've expressed interest in finding more new revenue solutions like a city capital gains tax or a vacancy tax. GeekWire reported not long after the Jumpstart tax began that Amazon did ramp up hiring on the east side at the expense of Seattle. So some jobs left the city. It's hard to nail down how many. Yeah. Do you believe that there is a tipping point for businesses or individuals with new taxes that they will leave Seattle if those are levied? How do you ensure that new taxes don't cost the city economically? 90 seconds.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I'm really proud of my work on the Jumpstart tax. I think that's obviously a very robust revenue source that prevented devastating cuts during the pandemic, has allowed our current mayor to balance the budget for the last 4 years. And yes, also there are tipping points, right? Companies respond to incentives, individuals respond to incentives. And so we have to be mindful of that, right? And so I absolutely think that we're going to need to seek new progressive revenue here in Seattle, but we're also going to have to be cautious about how we do that. And we're going to have to look at the data. We're going to have to look at how companies are responding. And so that's why I have focused on several other options potentially for raising new progressive revenue. I think it's possible that we could raise some more through the Jumpstart tax, but I do think we have to be cautious. And I also support, in the last legislative session, there was considered a statewide payroll-based tax that would have had a credit for Seattle companies that pay Jumpstart. I think that's a great idea because it would help to level that playing field. And so I definitely will be working with our state legislative delegation on progressive revenue at the state level and trying to find ways that we can do that so that we don't have this very different tax environment in Seattle versus in neighboring cities.
Thank you. Mayor Harrell, I'm going to ask a similar question to you. You'll also have 90 seconds. You worked with Councilmember Alexis Mercedes Rink on a business and occupation tax restructure that's going to be on the November ballot. It would raise an estimated $100 million. You've also backed a new public safety sales tax hike and education levy. You have also relied on departments of the city to underspend, and that has precedent. Departments have underspent over the last 4 years by tens of millions of dollars. However, some on the council have raised concerns that relying on departments to spend less leaves the city unprepared for an economic downturn. Is your way of balancing the budget right now sustainable, too risky? What do you think? 90 seconds.
It's a best practice once again. What we've done is we looked at, on the underspend issue as an example, I have 41 departments who have an $8.5 billion budget. I need my departments to be fiscally responsible. So we have to do hiring freezes. We have to look at travel. We have to look at all of the expenses. I've asked them to cut approximately $40 to $50 million out of the budget. When we propose the B&O tax, and you don't see an organized campaign against that, it's a smart tax policy. 90% of the businesses will get a tax break. Businesses before that didn't have to pay the tax were capped at $100,000. Now, if you do $2 million, you do not pay the tax. Businesses that do more than $2 million, if they do $5 million, for example, they get credit for $2 million. We're trying to stimulate small businesses. And if you look at the other programs we've rolled out from a tax policy standpoint, you'll see that we've done a great job of trying to incentivize small businesses, which will be the key to our success. Now, the fact of the matter is we will lose jobs. 40% of our job sector is affiliated with the high-tech industry, 40%. They moved 10,000 jobs over as a result of some of our tax policies. So I have the challenge to make sure that we make sure, Amazon still made 60 billion. Microsoft made 80 billion. They have to pay their fair share when they're extracting money out of our society. Make no mistake about that.
5 seconds.
But I also have to calibrate making sure we don't have job loss, because I want jobs downtown in the different business districts throughout the city.
Thank you to our candidates. And we're going to move into a lightning round, just a fun wrap up here. We're going to move quickly through some serious and less serious topics. And I would like to hear the lightning round sound. There it is. That's the lightning round sound. And Mayor Harrell may be hoping that the lightning hits that crow that was driving him nuts earlier.
Too good.
Okay, so really quickly, again, we're going to start with a couple more serious ones. We're going to ask for just a one-word answer here. The city's new soap and soda laws, that's the stay out of drug areas and stay out of areas of prostitution. These laws, are they effective public safety measures? Yes or no? Mayor Harrell first, and then Katie Wilson.
Yes, they can be.
Katie Wilson?
No.
Question number 2. Does Seattle have sufficient bus-only lanes on its roads? Yes or no? Katie Wilson first.
No.
No.
Okay, we are holding this debate during a win or go home Seattle Mariners Game 7. I hate to speak this into words, but if the Mariners lose tonight, do we barbecue Humpy on a cedar plank, smoke Humpy and put him on a bagel, or fill in the blank? How should we make amends for Humpy at the altar of the baseball gods? Mayor Harrell, that question goes to you first.
Well, Humpy is technically a pink salmon. You can only smoke a pink salmon. But I love Humpy, so we're just going to pat Humpy on the back and wish Humpy well.
Katie, what should be done with Humpy? I mean, after his win, his head got pretty big.
I think we let him go free. We release him.
Swim free?
Swim free,
okay.
little Humpy, yes.
Okay. Really quickly, Katie Wilson, your TikTok about the high cost of pizza in Seattle went viral. But where, in your opinion, is the best pizza slice in Seattle to be found?
My kitchen, where my husband makes it.
That might be a cheater answer, but I'm going to allow it. Mayor Harrell, best pizza slice?
Tutabella. I love Tutabella's pizza.
Nice.
Oven roasted.
Okay, speaking of Mariners, final question. If you were not taking part in this debate right now, where would you like to be watching the game? Mayor Harrell first, then Katie Wilson.
At home, holding my wife's hand.
Oh, that's also a cheater answer. Katie.
I would be at a bar with my campaign staff.
Nice. Okay, we're at the point of closing statements, everybody. Thanks for having fun with us here during the lightning round. We flipped a coin, my producer Hans Anderson and I, ahead of time. Katie Wilson, you're going to have the first closing statement, and you have 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. It is great to be here tonight, and I'm running for mayor because I love the city. I've lived here for over 20 years. My husband and I are now raising our daughter here, and I want Seattle to be a place where she can grow up and build a life if she wants to. But right now, that vision feels very, very far out of reach. Everything is so expensive. I'm an outsider. I've been working as a community organizer, coalition builder for 14 years. So I'm an outsider, but I'm an outsider who has an insider's experience of City Hall. I've been at the table when legislation was designed, when policies were hashed out, when programs were implemented. So I've had a window into seeing how City Hall works and how it often fails to work for the people of the city. I believe that Seattle can be a place where you do not need a six-figure income to feel at home. I believe we can have great public spaces, we can have thriving neighborhood business districts, and I am not going to stop being a community organizer when I walk into the mayor's office. I'm going to continue to listen. I'm going to continue to work with communities around the city. And I would be honored to have your vote as we're coming up on the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Harrell, 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Sure. So thank you as well. And I have no doubt that my opponent means everything that she says. No doubt at all. The fact of the matter is we are living in unprecedented times in many respects. And experience will indeed matter. Life experiences as well. That many of you know my mother was in a concentration camp because of an executive order. We have a tyrant as our president right now. And it could divide us or keep us as one. And the change that people want to see, I've been fighting for my entire life. My roadway to become mayor has been indeed tough. I've had to fight for affordable housing. We've invested over $1 billion. Next year, every kid that graduates from Seattle Public Schools will be able to go to college for free. We will spend another $1 billion in affordable housing. 2 years college. So what I've tried to do is to right the ship, and we could be a phenomenal city and show this country what we could do because of who we are here in the city of Seattle. And that's the foundation I've laid for everyone in this room. And we should all be proud of that. My roadway to become mayor, to sit here with confidence, has been a tough one. Especially when I'm talking over seagulls. But thank you for being here. I ask you for 4 more years.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for being a good sport, everybody, with our spin on the debate format. And thank you to our live audience who came out for Democracy Tonight. Mayor Harrell and Katie Wilson, thank you very much. And happy voting, everybody.